At the end of our last installment, we finally got reception through the antenna terminals, and we got an image on the screen. However, it was very, very unstable. So what I'm picking up with now is checking out the sync circuit. The vertical sync was completely non-existent. The horizontal was very twitchy. So it seems like the fault is going to be something common to both circuits, which would be this. So here is our video amp, and there's a pickoff coming all the way down and around and around, and it goes into the sync amp and the sync separator and the sync clipper. So I've been going through and double checking my work here, and I found a bad resistor. 5.6K resistor down buried here that was measuring about 3.3. So roughly half of what it should be. Otherwise, I've been finding remarkably few. Actually, there's only one other bad resistor I've found. Yeah, they tend to drift a little bit higher, but we're only talking 5 or 10%. As I noted earlier, although every resistor, or most of the resistors are listed as half watt, they're all 1 watt for whatever reason. So that might account for them being more stable because they used oversized resistors. I don't know. But could this one resistor being out of whack account for all of our troubles? I don't know. But rather than digging any further, I want to flip this chassis back down, power it back up, and see if that one change had any effect. Oh, and if you're wondering what was I holding in my hand there, this is something I found in a tube caddy, I think, a while ago. It's a tube tapper, aka a pencil with a double-ender eraser on the end. The idea is if you suspect a tube, you can tap it with this, which will check it for harmonics or loose elements inside, shorts, that kind of thing. So kind of a neat little promotional item. CBS Hytron tube tapper, television and radio supply, wholesale radio and television supplies, 825 Southeast Grand Avenue, Portland, Oregon. Alright, let's see if that made any difference. I would say yes, because I haven't touched anything yet, and it's a stable image. Set contrast, brightness. Ah, it's a good picture. Focus is. Whoop, spoke too soon. But that has a lot of value in and of itself because it was stable. So, and then it wasn't. It reminds me of that vertical collapse problem we had earlier, which seemed to be heat related. Maybe that's still something lurking that's not happy as the set warms up. I'm curious about now is, can I manipulate controls and get it, or are we just completely hosed now? This vertical hold, and yeah, now it just wanders around just like it did before. Alright, so to cool down, and the one thing I want to do is swap out that 6SN7. That would be this guy. Nice looking Sylvania. Let's give this guy a try. It's kind of curious. It has Cunningham on it. RCA bought them out ages ago. By 1952, I would have thought the Cunningham name was long gone. And here we go again. Alright, so now vertical hole, I can actually rotate the control through a very large range and it stays locked. Flip over to a test pattern. So not doing anything, looking at this multi-burst pattern. Yeah, pretty good bandwidth. It's about 3 megahertz. So the question is, will it stay? Tweak the focus a little bit too. Annoying, none of these adjustments have knobs, so you flip. Oh yeah, there we go. There we go. I grab a screwdriver to do anything. And obviously it's pretty tiny. We need to increase the height and the width. But also you always got to be careful and use a converter box to make sure it's in, what mode is it in. Is it in 4:3? Is it widescreen? Is it letterboxed? But with the test pattern, it's obviously also pretty small. So now we need to wait and see, will that stay stable? And our vertical and horizontal size controls. Aspect ratio is right, as you can see, but just everything needs to be 20% bigger, 30% bigger. This is horizontal size. And this does have a mask on it, so we don't want to go too crazy with that. Let's see, centering controls. I want to move it over a little bit to the left. Can't really. Do some mechanical adjustments for that. Also, I think the ion trap magnet is quite perfectly where it should be. Really get it a lot brighter there. Right. Vertical size. This guy. Vertical linearity has kind of a busted shaft on it, so it's really tough to turn. Two hands on it. Yeah, something loose too. I'll be able to change the brightness so much just by tapping on things. It's like vertical linearity worse. I'm trying to go the other way. Alright, that's better. It's looking pretty good there. Yeah, it's holding stable. Let's see, what else? There's one control here that I haven't sussed out yet. It's unmarked. Huh. So that's weird. So we've got this control that controls horizontal width, and this one that also is changing. So they might have a width control and a size control. There was one of them linearity. Let's see, what do we get going on here? So it's horizontal size, horizontal peaking, horizontal damping, and horizontal linearity, and horizontal centering. So we have 5 controls we can adjust. I'm not entirely sure which is which. Well, let's see, this front panel. The peaking is the one on the top of the chassis between the 807s. So, and the 25 water behind the vertical support column, that's a damper control. I don't know how to adjust that. So this other front control, the unlabeled one, must be horizontal linearity. It's by process of elimination. So let's get back to this. And what I really want to do is move it over, but horizontal size looks about right. Linearity control. It's hard to say because it just seems to make it have a dramatic impact on the width, not so much linearity. I've got these backwards. Actually, yeah, I'm thinking this one is more likely linearity and this one is width. Either way, it's really nice to have potentiometers to control this stuff rather than coils, because they have a very noticeable effect and they're very easy to manipulate. That's vertical centering. That's as good as horizontal centering gets. Not too shabby. So, was it the resistor? Was it the tube? Was it a little bit of both? I mean, for sure the resistor was out of spec. There's no question about that. But it seems like swapping out that tube had a big effect too. Even though I tested those 6N7s multiple times. Nothing like testing it in the set. Very overcast day, so reception is just terrible. Turned off all the extraneous light sources. I turned off all the extraneous light sources, so now we can get an even better look at it. Cool. It's been running for about 10 minutes now. No issues have cropped up. Alright, so far so good. So what next? Other than letting it run a while, make sure no problems crop up, wait for the new 807, and then actually go through the procedures. Complain about the service info being a little lacking, but at least they do have procedures for most of these controls. I've just been eyeballing things and playing around with the controls, but there is actually a bit more of a methodical procedure you can go through. Another thing I want to do is with sound. So I talked to a forum member that has, I think it's Winchester to Dumont RA-101 chassis set. And he was saying that, which also has this tuning meter. I think the only two sets that have it are the 101 and 102. And he was saying that when you're tuning in, that needle should go, sorry, wrong thing. When you're tuning in the TV, that needle should swing either side of center, and mine does not. Because it's tied into the FM discriminator. You get that S curve, and when you go to either side of the center point, it should swing positive and negative. So I'm thinking mine is off a little. So I'm thinking when I get the full kick to the right, might actually be where the null point is. Or halfway or something like that. Anyways, the point being is it really is an aid to tune in to get the best sound, because when you get the best sound, needle should swing to either side of that vertical line, and when you're right on the vertical line, you know you've got the sound tuned in as good as it gets. So these sets are far more finicky about sound than they are video. As noted, as I tune this thing, as I'm moving it, aside from it jumping as the contacts are dirty, the image stays there. I'm turning this quite a bit. But once I get a speaker hooked up, you'll see that the sound will be far more finicky than the video. So it also has DC restoration, so as I jump around different scenes like commercials to different programming, I shouldn't need to keep touching the contrast and brightness. Let's see if that holds true. So I'm not going to touch anything. And let's see, and it's looking pretty good. Let's see, does it still look good when we go back to the main program? We're closing credits anyways, and yeah, it still does look good. But this will be good. We're going from one program to another program. Let's see. So that's one annoying thing about sets that don't have DC restoration, lower end sets, is that you often have to keep reaching out to those controls again and again to tweak things to get the best viewing experience. Alright, yeah, this is looking pretty solid. Well, early TV convention is upon us. I will be leaving tomorrow. Got just enough time left to do one last thing because a package just arrived which has some 807s in it. So let's replace the marginal 807 in the power supply. I've also hooked up the speaker, so let's do a good last run of this set before I take off. The convention is going to be insane, I expect. So lovely Made in USA RCA Jan for the Marconi company. A little off kilter on the socket. Not hardly the first time I've seen that. I'm sure it works just fine. It's beautiful looking new old stock, so let's give this guy a try. So for those of you who don't know, unfortunately John Folsom passed away, who was a huge figure in the early television community, especially with early color sets. He donated a whole bunch of stuff to the museum. The museum is chock full of his sets to capacity, including in the CRT rebuilding room, so I don't know if I'm going to have access to it, or if I do, it may be limited. But I will certainly be photographing, videoing a bunch of amazing sets. Some of them are on the Early Television Foundation website right now. Some of them are being auctioned off because the museum just doesn't have the space. I think they're auctioning off a few of John's sets. I think also some of the museum sets to make room for some of John's sets. He had a lot of early color sets, the prototypes with 15 GP22s. And he has one of those RCA theater projection things that I've posted a bunch of photos of. I definitely want to get a good look at that. Also, the museum has a Dumont Clifton. And I've looked at the front of it. I've never really turned it, not really, I've never turned it around and gotten a good look inside. I saw some photos online and took a look at it. And it's kind of odd because somebody drilled hole or cut big hole, like 1-inch diameter holes in the chassis. Remember, there's a metal plate on over the bottom of these chassis. I guess for ventilation, they cut a bunch of holes in the back. It looks like it's a bit corroded too. But the reason I want to check it out, one, just to compare it to mine, but also with the thoughts of it'd be nice to restore it for the museum, or a colleague of mine expressed some interest in giving it a try. But my main focus there will be the RCA RR359. I'm going to do a presentation on it on Friday from 2 to 4. And you heard it here first, probably, we're going to pull a chassis out of the museum's RR359. One, to talk about it during the presentation, but also with the thought of, we're going to try to get it working. I've heard it has some problems. We're going to review it all. We're going to check some stuff out. We're going to try to power it up. All right, speaking of powering up, there we go. Nervous there for a while. I never asked her. I didn't turn on my signal source. So first we're going to do a test pattern with audio. We have audio. I keep turning the wrong tuning dial. I'm watching that signal strength meter, and it's kind of odd. I'm sure it needs a sound alignment. Because there's kind of two peaks and like a weird dead spot. And the needle isn't quite doing what I would expect. And we have lost synchronization. So let's give that a little tweak. I think we need a little more height, and the linearity's off a little bit. So let's see what that. So this is vertical size. It's a little compressed at the bottom, just barely. It's annoying because the linearity shaft is the damaged one. That's too far the other way. Alright, that's a little bit better. So what we were seeing before, when I would change that's contrast, when I would change the brightness, oh, that made a big difference with that new 807. When I was doing this before, I turned the brightness up, the image got large and kind of distorted and ballooned badly. That's because I was driving, I assume the high voltage supply was drawing. The 807 couldn't regulate. It just didn't have enough power. But this is the kind of thing I was expecting with a regulated high voltage power supply, that you can vary the brightness over a pretty big range and the image does not change in size or get distorted very much. There's also adjustments on the high voltage supply, which I have not done yet. I need to get a high voltage probe on there and all that, but I am crunched for time. So you can see on that one, that makes a big difference. This one's kind of odd. You can turn it over, I'm turning the control about halfway of the pot, and there's no change. Then it jumps larger, and then there's no change over the other half of it. So, yeah. Anyways. Cool. Alright, let's switch to some live programming. I switched my better over-the-air converter box to output on channel 3, and the picture looks phenomenal, except we have our old sync problems back. I'm just going to turn this set off and let it cool down for a while. So, it seems like replacing that bad resistor and swapping out the 6SN7 didn't really fix the problem, or maybe my replacement resistor's gone bad, but we're going to have to get in there and do some more checking. I'm going to check some voltages and waveforms when I get back from convention. Rather annoying. I think what I'll try doing is swap a couple of these tubes again. Oh boy. That's the sync tube, and it seems to be a bit hotter than the 6SN7 nearby. Also a little odd that it seems to have so much better reception on channel 3 versus 4. Okay, so we got vertical hold back, but horizontal's crap, because I was... Oh, no, there we go. That. Vertical holds out too still. Man, just when I thought I had everything licked. Oh, yeah, no, there's vertical hold. Let's see if we can do zoom on this. Yeah, try a different channel. There we go. That's weird. We have way too much width now, not enough height. I swear, this sun has a mind of its own. But when it works, which isn't as often as I'd like, it looks great. Alright, that is going to be it for now. We got work to do, but the convention calls. We'll get back to this. We got to go over things a lot more methodically now. The major problems have been resolved. We got 30 controls. We might have some loose connections. Probably need to tweak the alignment a bit. That's going to be it for now. Thanks for watching.